Hi guys, Fernandes, Lembo on the grid here with the Herald-Tribune. John, a lot to talk about, district games tomorrow night, but let's look back at the games we were at last week. In fact, let's look at a game that none of us were at.
Let's do that.
Which was the upset of the week, Lincoln beating Manatee. 4 turnovers for Manatee. You've seen them play this year. What seems to be your take on what's going wrong with Manatee right now?
Well, I wasn't at that game, so I can't really break down what happened, but I mean, 4 turnovers that game, 6 the week before. That's 10 turnovers in 2 weeks. You're not going to win many games doing that. I mean, that's not brain surgery right there to say that. I mean, you gotta take care of the football. I mean, the Palmetto game, some big plays bailed them out when they were turning the ball over, and I guess last week that didn't happen. But hey, they have run 6 straight district games now, beginning tomorrow night. And no, they don't have the toughest district in the state. Right. But if you keep giving teams the football and giving a good field position, it's going to bite you. And if you're Manatee's coaches, what you're hopeful is that last week, taught the guys something and, made them realize that you can't be sloppy at the football and expect to win every week. And, that's the thing about those non-district games. If you lose them but you learn something from them, it's almost, it's beneficial.
If Manatee has to go down and use a field goal to win a game, that's sort of anti-Hurricane. Usually they don't have to rely on field goals to win games. But, I talked to John Booth on Saturday, and he seemed to think it's more or less not what they're not doing as opposed to the opponents are doing. Right. Start of 6 straight district games against Alonso. Just going forward, does Manatee just have to just right what they're doing wrong and not so much worry about what the opponents are doing, you think? Yeah, I mean,
if they have no turnovers against Palmetto, who knows how that game shakes out? If they have none last week, who knows how that game shakes out? You just got to be, like I said, more careful with the football, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, from that point going forward. But I think if you're Manatee right now, you got to eliminate the mistakes, or else you lose on tomorrow night, and now you're in a bit of a ditch.
You're in a bit of a ditch, and they fall into number 3 in our poll behind Venice and Braden River. Right. You were at Palmetto Southeast last week. Palmetto looks good. They really haven't maybe played top-level competition. What do you see out of Dave Marino's
They played a good Fort Myers team in week 1. They played Manatee. No, they played some good teams.
Right,
last week against Southeast, their offense wasn't clicking at first, but their defense was really good. I mean, Southeast had some protection problems with the quarterback. They had Palmetto had 4 sacks in the first half. Southeast had some chances. Their first play of the game, halfback option of the 5-yard line, 75 yards. They can't score. Their next 2 possessions began in Palmetto territory, couldn't score. Palmetto didn't play its best game. Dave Marino and Jack Allison, of course, both said that. But to not play your best game and put up 28 points, that must be a nice position to be in.
That is nice.
So, but yeah, I mean, they bounced back nice after the tough loss to Manatee. But no, they're in a tough district, and they'll be playing some even tougher teams down the pike.
I was at Sarasota Island Coast game last week. A lot has been made of Josh Booker, rushed for over 200 yards again. But Brian Gagg, the freshman quarterback, who's sort of taken over that position and looks good. Again, we talk about local teams in the area, maybe not in the last several years, really putting forth their best effort. Hopefully Sarasota going forward. Again, they're at Palmetto. Tough game. We just mentioned Palmetto. Does Sarasota, again, have to a steady dose of Booker in this game?
We've talked all about, 7A11 being a 3-team race, Venice, Braden River, and Palmetto. I still think that's going to happen. But every once in a while, a team comes along and shakes things up. Sarasota could be that team. I mean, Palmetto to me is still a favorite tomorrow night. They're more experienced. They're home. Their offense is just so deep. And Sarasota has a young team, a young line, a young quarterback, a young running back. But Palmetto had some problems against Manatee with the big plays, and Josh Booker's put up big plays the last 2 weeks. So Palmetto to me is still a favorite in that game, but I think Sarasota is a team you really shouldn't sleep on, and maybe give them a year or two, and they could be the talk of this district.
I like what Brian Riles is. Ed Voles was there for 4 years, basically took his graduating class with him, and Brian had to start from scratch. I like what he's doing up there. Again, when you have a guy like Josh Booker, it really takes pressure off a freshman quarterback like Brian Gagg.
Yep.
There are several games here that might be considered a lock of the week. I don't want, we pick these games every week. We don't want to rely on the same team week after week. My lock of the week this week is Lakewood Ranch at Braden River. I'm sort of like
East Manatee County Brawl is
right.
your lock. Wow.
Exactly. I like Braden River in this.
I think Section E's gonna like that.
Right. I like what Kurt Bradley's doing up there.
Right.
They moved up to #2 in our poll. So I sort of like that. Nothing against Lakewood Ranch, but it's at Braden River, home field. I sort of like that. What's your lock of the week?
Well, I'm going to take a page out of your book. I'm going to pick Venice.
My book is tattered.
Well, you've had it is, but it's still legible.
Right.
You picked Venice the last couple of weeks. I'm picking them this week against Northport.
Right.
I think Venice is playing real good football right now. They're at home, I believe. It's at Venice. They're playing really good right now. Northport, I think they're building something with another new coach, Coach Brian Hattler. I was at a Northport practice a couple weeks ago. There's a good vibe out there. I think they're building something. They're turning a corner. Hopefully, Coach Hattler sticks around. That's been a problem the last few years at Northport. But I just think Palmetto right now Venice, I'm sorry, right now is the much better team. And I think they're my pick this week.
You know, we don't give much shout out to the smaller teams. I wrote about a little bit in last week's paper about St. Stephen's averaging 50 points a game.
Right.
Todd Cornetti got it going well up there, but they're in a conference where basically every one of their games is a conference game. Just maybe you can explain is the big difference between
I would love to
conference and district.
I would love to explain this. St. Stephen's is in the FHSAA, just like IMG, but they're an independent football team, so they're not in a district. They're in the Sunshine State Athletic Conference. And what it is pretty much a bunch of schools. I did a column on this last year. A bunch of schools that, for whatever reason, weren't happy with where they were, classified in the FHSAA. Maybe their appeals didn't go the way they wanted them to. So it's a lot of private schools, and what it is, it's 4 districts, 4 conferences. I'm sorry, 4 divisions, 4 divisions, and the top 2 finishers in each division go to the playoffs at the end of the year. But you're right. I mean, they've been playing these games since week 1. I mean, they had no break. And there's a couple of non-district games they have. They play ODA, for example, at the end of October in the Headmasters Cup game. They're big rivals, obviously, St. Stephen's ODA. But yeah, it's interesting how that shakes out. And it's worked out well. I mean, they have guys, coming out to the team, and this kind of dovetailed nicely for St. Stephen's because this happened when the new stadium was built, that $4.5 million complex they have out there.
Very nice. So right.
I think it's kind of came around the right time for them. And they're playing good football. Obviously, they're 3-0. They have a playmaker in Fred Billy, who's coached by Breon Carnes, who of course had a great career at Manatee in Northern Iowa. We had that story a couple weeks ago. He's coaching Fred Billy. Have a great relationship there. In fact, Fred Billy grew up idolizing Breon Carnes, and now he's being coached by him. So it's pretty cool. I mean, good for St. Stephen's. I think they made the right decision doing that. They were kind of in a district where they were the only team on this side of the Skyway. I think a lot of bigger schools. So they did what they had to do, and I think it was a good idea.
Out of door, also first win.
Yeah.
Braden Christian, Alan Gerber trying to get the job done up there. So a lot of the smaller schools that don't get the pub doing well, and we'll try to get your pub here.
Yep.
Next week, a lot of games to break down. Looking ahead, even more district games after that.
Yeah.
Basically, we're on a roll now in terms of district.
This is where it gets fun now. A lot of district games, everything means something.
Everything means something. So we'll be here to break it down. So for John Lembo, I'm Doug Fernandes. We'll see you next week on The Grid.